Maybe you heard over the weekend, the Bill Cosby trial, sexual assault trial, was declared a mistrial after the jury failed to come to a verdict after 52 hours of deliberation. After that, Bill Cosby's wife, Camille, issued a statement slamming everybody involved in the case, including the judge, the district attorney, prosecuting attorneys, and reporters. People are trying to make sure that everybody's reminded that a mistrial is not a victory. It is simply a mistrial, and it looks like they may go back to square one. We're going to find out more a little bit right now when we talk with Quentin Brogdon with the Dallas law firm of Crain Lewis. Good morning, Mr. Brogdon. How are you?
Good morning, Dave. How are you?
I'm fine. So this is an interesting series of developments in this trial, don't you think?
I think so. It's not unpredicted. They deliberated over 50 hours. They were deliberating longer than the took to put on the evidence, so it was expected at this point.
Do you have any idea? I know that the jurors have not spoken yet, but do we have any idea what it was that was causing the impasse?
No doubt, it was the credibility of the accuser. That was the Cosby strategy, is put her credibility on trial. It was a he said, she said case and remains that. There's no forensic evidence. So their strategy was to make her out to be a liar, to claim there was a romantic consensual relationship. Yes, Cosby philandered, but that was the extent of it. That was the strategy. They were pointing out inconsistencies in her testimony, in her versions over the years of the date of the assault, whether she was alone with Cosby before and after the assault. There was a 1-year delay in reporting it, which actually many of these inconsistencies are not that unusual in this kind of case, but that's up front and center in the strategy. You mentioned Camille Cosby, making the public statement to the press. Probably not a good idea, given this judge is still going to be presiding over the case going forward. And, she could upset this judge. She could upset, potential new jurors. It sure looks like Cosby's team is spiking the football before they have any win in the case. This prosecutor, Kevin Steele, ran on a platform of prosecuting Cosby, and he didn't wait to say, we're going to tee it up again. And the judge likewise said within 120 days, there's going to be a retrial. The same judge, by the way, who kept the prosecution from calling 12 other prior bad act witnesses, he only allowed the jury to hear from one, Kelly Johnson. So all those rulings are up, potentially to be changed. The judge could decide to do it differently this time in his discretion.
Assuming that there is going to be a mistrial, if you were involved in plotting the prosecution this time, what would you do differently?
Well, both sides are going to be parsing over, going to be trying to get some intel from the jurors to the extent that's possible, but they're going to be parsing over their strategies. The defense probably is the biggest beneficiary in the retrial because the prosecution spent most of the time putting on their case. The defense put on only about 6 minutes. They recalled one of the policemen. That was the extent of it, other than putting on their case within the prosecution's case by cross-examining, the other accuser, Kelly Johnson, obviously Andrea Constant, the main accuser, and then Constand's mother, Gianna Constant. Those were probably the three biggest cross-examinations and the biggest legal fireworks during the trial. But all sides are going to be rethinking what they did. And the prosecution, I'm sure, would like to get these other bad act witnesses in to the extent the judge will reconsider his original ruling. That could be outcome determinative. Interestingly, Cosby's been convicted in the minds of many in the court of public opinion, but it's largely because of these 60 other women. And this jury that just got hung, they didn't, and we're not supposed to be considering all those other women, just one other woman. And so that's a big deal that potentially is outcome determinative. Whether the jury gets to hear from and consider any of these other women who claim the same and similar molestation.
I'm talking with Quentin Brogdon. He's with the law firm of Crain Lewis. Given the fact that, as you said, the defense only presented about 6 minutes of actual defense, excuse me, What I couldn't understand about that was, does that mean that they didn't have anything else, or does it mean that they felt that their work during opposition to the prosecution witnesses was adequate, and that their case spoke for itself?
Well, the biggest witness they could have put on would have been Cosby himself, but everyone agrees, had they done that, they risk opening up a withering cross-examination of him on some of these other women, same and similar circumstances. If his claim is, I never, did this to women when they were unconscious, then that opens the door potentially and probably for the prosecution to bring at least some of those other women to the stand and to say, no, we had similar encounters with him and he gave us drugs and we were unconscious just as Constand is claiming she was, or unable to consent, basically paralyzed and incapacitated. So that's why, no doubt, they didn't call him. They did want to call another woman, I think her name was Marguerite Jackson, who claims that Constand told her that this didn't really happen, that the whole reason she was making these claims was to be able to pursue a civil suit, a suit for money against Cosby. And in fact, Constand did pursue a civil suit, and Cosby's deposition testimony in that civil suit, when it was released in 2015, is probably the biggest reason this criminal case went forward. It was discontinued by the first DA, Bruce Castor, but the new DA ran on a platform, Kevin Steele ran on a platform of reopening it, and he did, and they went forward. And so those, they could have called, and they wanted to call Marguerite Jackson, and no doubt they will be revisiting that with the trial judge. Again, the same trial judge that Cosby's wife, Camille, slammed as arrogant and in collusion with the DA. There was a big, not altercation, but a disagreement, reportedly, between Cosby's trial attorneys and Cosby's publicist about, that, I'm sure, is what it was. Whether or not that should be read publicly, Camille Cosby's statement, I think that was a mistake for them to do that. They're spiking the football way too early.
You mentioned a few minutes ago about a lot of people in the public mind. There are a lot of people that believe that Bill Cosby did these crimes of which he's accused. And I'm wondering about another statement, and I don't have the name of the person who said this. I apologize for that, but I read it just this morning, who speculated that Bill Cosby, being the celebrity that he is, with the reputation that he has enjoyed for decades, probably got a lot of favor from the jury in that regard.
Sure. Cosby has a reputation, longstanding as America's dad. He had his show in the 80s and the 90s. He's had a squeaky clean image publicly, and he's moralized and sermonized, many would say, on any number of issues, including African-American fatherhood and staying with children who are, fathered and things like that. And so, yes, his celebrity is a big deal. And you've got jurors who know. I mean, he's 79 years old. He's suffered a crushing loss publicly, no matter whatever happens in any conviction. And can we say that there weren't jurors, numbers of them back there, who weren't looking at that? We cannot. They may well have been saying this would amount to a life sentence for a 79-year-old who has fallen from favor, whose career almost certainly is largely over, if not completely over. And his celebrity status is a big deal in this, and it can cut both ways. On the one hand, he's America's dad, and if this is true, was a hypocrite. And on the other hand, jurors may be reluctant to believe that America's dad, some jurors may be reluctant to believe that America's dad did this heinous thing for which he was on trial. And so the celebrity status, yes, is a big deal and could skew the result, no question.
All right. Mr. Brogdon, thanks. Always enjoyed talking with you. You give us a lot of information, a lot of good insights. There's Quentin Brogdon with the firm Crain Lewis.